happy Friday. And, of course, it being Friday in the first hour of our program, that means it's time for our national town hall meeting with the guy I think of as America's senator. Although the good citizens of Vermont, I was one for a decade, I know they're very proud that he's their senator, Senator Bernie Sanders. Bernie, welcome back to the program.
Good to be with you, Tom.
It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. I'm curious what's on your mind about what's going. We've had a lot since the last time we talked.
We did. Obviously, job numbers are important. Obviously, I think there's been a lot of discussion about the president's performance in the debate the other night and what that means. And there is, I think, increased discussion about how we go forward on deficit reduction. There have been some troubling articles that I've read which suggests that some in Washington are moving in the wrong direction. I think in terms of the debate, no question that in terms of performance, the president was not at his best. In terms of theater, I think it's fair to say that Romney won that debate. But I think in terms of substance, what is important for people to understand is that Romney displayed that etch-a-sketch characteristic, which I think he has been displaying almost throughout his whole political career, changing positions. And I think the president was a little bit surprised to find that virtually everything this guy's been saying for the last 18 months was gone, and suddenly he was no longer a right-wing conservative, but a moderate who was worried about children and worried about teachers and worried about people who might need health care if they had pre-existing conditions. And all of this stuff is simply stuff that he pulled out of his hat for this debate. And I think that took the president a little bit aback. But the reality is that right now, in terms of substance, in terms of where Mr. Romney is at the head of a right-wing extremist party, that's not what the Republican Party has always been, that is where they are today. You have a party which absolutely, positively wants and will, if given the power to do so, give huge tax breaks to the wealthiest people in this country at a time when the rich are already doing phenomenally well. These people will, if given the opportunity to do it, cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut education, and move this country along the oligarchic path of a handful of very, very wealthy people owning and controlling our economic and political life. What I was disappointed about in the debate was that the president really did not take Mr. Romney on forcefully in terms of defending some of the very positive accomplishments of his administration, pointing out that it is nothing to be ashamed about, that 30 million more Americans will get health insurance as a result of the Affordable Care Act, making everyone understand that despite Romney's rhetoric, pre-existing conditions will not be available to the vast majority of the people who will need them if Romney is reelected, making it clear that as difficult as the economy is right now, that the worst of Wall Street, more unfettered free trade, which has led us to where we are today. So, Tom, I think I was not happy with the president's performance, but I think we've got a month to make it clear to every American what a disaster a Romney victory would be and what a disaster it would be if the Republicans regained control of the United States Senate. So that's, probably the issue I think that most people are thinking about right now.
If I could put a punctuation point on that, have you, I'm guessing you haven't, because I think this just came out, the comments that Antonin Scalia made at the American Enterprise Institute either last night or this morning?
Nope, didn't see that. I've been on the road all day.
It's just 4 sentences. Let me share it with you.
Sure.
It was a question and answer, or a few sentences. It's a paragraph. He says the death. They were asked about, how would he decide? What did he think? He says the death penalty. Give me a break. It's easy. Abortion, absolutely easy. Nobody ever thought the Constitution prevented laws against or restrictions on abortion. Homosexual sodomy, come on. For 200 years, it was criminal in every state. The Constitution means exactly what I think it ought to mean. End of quote. Verbatim.
Well, that's a very enlightened statement in a democratic society, that the Constitution means what Justice Scalia thinks he means. And I think I would remind my friends in Massachusetts that Scott Brown, I think, suggested, if my memory is correct, that Scalia was his favorite justice.
Yes, his model judge.
Yeah, his model judge. So I hope the folks in Massachusetts understand that. Look, we have a situation right now where, as a result of Citizens United, as a result of the fact that we have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth, and the worst that it's been in this country since the 1920s, you got, Tom, and this is really scary stuff, and the American people have got to rise up and take it on. You have a small number of folks, a handful of very wealthy and powerful billionaires who are in the process of trying to buy the United States government. Citizens United has given them that opportunity. The Koch brothers, as I've mentioned many times, spending $400 million on this campaign. Mr. Sheldon Adelson's going to spend $100 million. We got other zillionaires spending all kinds of money. And they want to take us into a place where we push back and rescind virtually every major piece of legislation passed in the last 80 years since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, which was designed to protect working families and the middle class. These guys want to eventually move to the privatization of Social Security, give it over to Wall Street. There are some of these guys, right-wing Republicans, who believe that Social Security is unconstitutional. Government shouldn't be involved in protecting the retirement security of elderly people or people with disabilities. There are folks there. Paul Ryan, the Romney's vice presidential nominee, has come up with a plan to end Medicare as we know it in 10 years and give a voucher to seniors, which will be totally inadequate in providing the health care that sick elderly seniors need. At a time when we have tens and tens of millions of people with no health insurance, they want to make drastic cuts in Medicaid, throwing millions of kids off of health insurance, making it harder for middle-class families to be able to provide for their parents who need nursing home care. At a time when college education is increasingly unaffordable, and we need to expand the Pell program and other federal programs to make it easier for working-class families to send their kids to college. These guys want to make drastic cuts in those programs. They want to cut back on nutrition. And I think if people think, well, he's exaggerating, I really am not. What you have right now is a right-wing extremist party who believes that the function of government primarily is defense. And despite the fact that we have tripled defense spending since 1997, spending over $700 billion a year now, they want to spend more on defense, want to give more tax breaks to the rich, and they want to cut back on almost everything else that you can think of. And in terms of environmental issues like global warming, it ain't on their radar screen. Never comes up. Not to be discussed. Every scientist, or virtually all scientists, know how serious this problem is. We have Republicans who refuse to even acknowledge the reality of global warming.
Excellent point. Senator Bernie Sanders with us, taking your calls next in our national town hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie. Senator Bernie Sanders. His website, sanders.senate.gov. Ours, thomhartmann.com. Our telephone number, 866-987-THOM. We'll be back with your calls for Senator Sanders.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
You can also drop by our live chat room. It's free. Go over to thomhartmann.com, hang out with some of the finest minds in the world. Say hello. And welcome back. Let's see here. Dolores in Bryan, Ohio, watching Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You are on the air with Senator Sanders. Dolores?
What a privilege to be with you. I don't actually have a question. Well, maybe there's a question buried in it. I am so outraged that we are all succumbing to this fallacy that Romney won a debate. How can a man who lied continuously throughout the debate, I heard 27 lies in 38 minutes. Okay, during the debate, or was he lying for a year and a half? Which is it? In either case, I do not credit a man as a winner who lies. And I am furious with all of us for saying he won.
Dolores, you make a very good point, and I think you made it perhaps better than I did. Unfortunately, and this is a very, very serious problem, we live in a media culture where public policy, what makes sense, what policies can, for example, help the middle class, what policies can help us deal with environmental issues, those are fairly irrelevant. What is relevant for much of the media is zingers. It is looking at politics and government like it were a baseball game. Who's winning and who's losing, who performed better, like we are auditioning here for somebody on American Idol rather than for the President of the United States. And that's how it's looked at. Now, what a strong media would have said is, here is Mr. Romney totally changing his views on everything that he has said over the last 18 months, especially when he wanted to win the nomination and attract right-wing extremists, and now he's gotten to another position. And maybe tell us about the history of Mr. Romney, who has a long tradition of changing his position. Pro-choice, anti-choice, concerned about global warming, doesn't mention global warming, and on it goes. But the reality that we live in, unfortunately, Dolores, is that a lot of what media coverage is about is looking at it as if it were a ball game, winners and losers, and that's the reality. Your point that in terms of substance, the fact that he lied on numerous occasions, that is the point. And I think the President is trying to get that point out now to the American people.
Okay, and just with one quick question here. We just have a minute before the break. Orlando in Pleasant Hill, California. Orlando, a quick question for Senator Sanders?
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of like, this is one of the things, I'm a Democrat. I'm not necessarily registered as a Democrat, but one of the things that just pisses me off a lot of times about the Democrats, I feel like a lot of times they can be so reactionary on a lot of things. And one of the things that's really been bothering me, I listened to Thom a few weeks ago talk about how the Republicans have really tried hard to really take the elections in very dubious ways throughout the history of the past, probably 40, 50 years or better. And with this voter ID mess that's going around in so many states, I just feel like here's another place where I feel like where the Democrats have not really, beat the fires.
Okay, Orlando, let's take that question after the break here.
Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you. Orlando, thank you very much. Senator Sanders, thank you. We'll be right back, 20 minutes past the hour.
And for a multitude of things like them, we have only just begun to fight.
20 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to the Thom Hartmann Program. It's our Brunch with Bernie hour. Senator Bernie Sanders answering your calls in our national town hall meeting. And both our chat room and Orlando had this question, Bernie. What do we do about Republican voter disenfranchisement from the voter suppression ID laws to,
what Orlando is saying is that he is, disgusted with a situation where Republicans continue to fight extremely unfairly. Look, everybody has a different point of view in this world, and by living in a democratic society, we say, okay, that's your point of view, this is my point of view, we're going to hold an election and we see who wins. But what Republicans have done in the last several years is, number one, pushed very, very hard. Mitch McConnell was the Republican leader in the Senate, very much part of the process of getting Citizens United passed by Mr. Scalia and the United States Supreme Court. And that opened the door to huge amounts of money into the political process, not all of it but the vast majority of it going to Republicans and often to right-wing Republicans. Second of all, and this is Orlando's point, at a time when voter fraud in America is not, fortunately, thank God, a serious problem, under the guise of combating a non-serious problem, what Republican governors and legislatures have done all over this country is to pass laws making it difficult for lower-income people and seniors to participate in the political process. And the reason they did that is very, very clear to everybody, as Orlando just said. It is to lower voter turnout for those people who will vote against Republicans. That's all, pure and simple. Everybody understands that. So if you're poor and you don't own a car and you don't drive and you don't have a photo ID license, driver's license, you know what? It's going to be harder to get you to the polling place. And that is exactly the intention of these laws. Now, the good news is that in recent months, in a number of states, most recently in Pennsylvania, these laws, appropriately enough, have begun to be stricken down by the courts because they're clearly unconstitutional. They are clearly an effort to deny people their constitutional right to participate in the democratic political process, to vote. So Orlando was right. I mean, these guys have billionaires behind them funding their campaigns. They want to make it harder for working people, lower-income people to vote. And we've just got to stand up and fight as hard as we can to defeat them and that entire process.
Okay, Craig in Parlin, New Jersey. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. Just let me start by saying Oliver Wendell Holmes said that taxes are the admission to a civil society. Now, my question, Senator Sanders, is anybody in Washington talking about, to solve our revenue problem, ending our free trade policy and putting high tariffs on all imports and getting out of the WTO, creating a demand in the USA that would start putting our 24 million hardworking Americans who lost their jobs because they were outsourced back to work, paying their fair taxes, revenue, and stimulating our economy by once again being able to purchase durable goods labeled made in the USA. And that's my question.
Well, it's a great question, Craig, and the answer is yes. You're talking to somebody who has voted against every one of these disastrous trade agreements. So let me just take a moment on it, because it is an issue, Craig, that is not talked about terribly much. I'll tell you why. Because essentially you have virtually all Republicans who agree with unfettered free trade. You have many Democrats who agree with unfettered free trade. You have almost every major editorial page in the United States of America that agrees with unfettered free trade, despite the fact that tens of thousands of factories have been shut down in recent years. We've lost 55,000 factories in the last 10 years, many of them, not all, but many of them due to these disastrous trade agreements, which, as Craig suggested, companies are shutting down here, moving to China, moving to Vietnam, moving to other low-wage countries, and they bring their products back into this country. So Craig is asking an important question that does not get discussed enough. Tom and I talk about it quite a bit. But Craig, yes, you are absolutely correct. We need to understand that NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, has failed. It has been good for corporate America, for the big money interest. It has been bad for working people. We have lost millions of decent paying jobs. And what is the answer? The answer is, among other, in addition to changing our trade policy, is to make it clear to large corporations that they've got to start rebuilding the manufacturing sector in this country and start producing products here made in the USA. And is our tariffs part of that solution? Absolutely they are. Craig, thanks very much for that good question.
Okay. And Jerry in Minneapolis, Minnesota, listening on KGNF. Jerry, you're on the air with Senator Sanders. We have just a minute to the break.
I had a question for the senator. Does he think it would be a good idea to start like a secondary voluntary retirement program that would be for like stocks or government bonds that would sort of blunt the Romneys of the world from trying to turn Social Security into an investment vehicle?
Well, I think, Jerry, that what we have to understand is Social Security. I hear some of my conservative friends say, well, if you invest in Wall Street and the stock market, you're going to make more money than you would through Social Security. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it is absolutely not true. And talk to the millions of people who lost their life savings when Wall Street collapsed in 2008. Social Security is not an investment program. You want to invest in Wall Street. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. That's your right. Social Security is an insurance program which has worked magnificently for 77 years, never once failing to pay out what people are entitled to.
Senator Bernie Sanders with us here on our Brunch with Bernie Hour, our national town hall meeting. Your opportunity to ask your question of Senator Bernie Sanders. Check out his website at sanders.senate.gov, ours at thomhartmann.com. We'll be back with more right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And you can check out our Thom Hartmann iPhone and iPad app over at the App Store or at thomhartmann.com. Our Brunch with Bernie Hour, Senator Bernie Sanders on the line with us. And Bernie, were you going to pick up an answer on the other side of this break?
No, I think we're okay.
Okay, great. Okay. Let's see here. Woody in Litchfield, Arizona. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good morning or good afternoon. Again, it's a pleasure to speak with you guys, and I know I've given you some tough ones in the past. And I guess today I want to focus on getting a Congress we can work with. I've got 34 years with USDA in the lending side, Farmers Home Administration, Rural Development, and the Farm Service Agency. An example of Congress's act is that we have a guarantee program that I don't have the authority to review the appraisal. Solyndra was a guarantee loan that was passed by a Republican Congress under the 2002 Farm Bill. The ability to make these loans, I think, needs to be preserved, but just not guarantee. Let's use federal dollars and have federal employee service loans. My daughter had a student loan, and when I called on her behalf to try to get something solved, I was talking to a loan servicer out of the Philippines because it was a guarantee loan. Yeah. How do we get those loans made by the government and then serviced by government employees that can then act on the behalf of the administration?
In other words, stop outsourcing, stop having banks be middlemen in these loans, I think was the question.
Right. I think, Woody, as Tom and I have talked about many times, in terms of loans and in terms of banking, I think I speak for you, Tom, when you say you want to go back to the old boring banking system, right?
Yes. Safe, predictable, boring, mildly profitable banks.
Right. In other words, banking ain't hard. What we have now on Wall Street, which has got to be addressed if we're going to save this economy and save the middle class, is Wall Street has been converted from a banking system into a gambling casino. And what they are involved with is not lending money to the productive economy where businesses can gain affordable loans and create jobs in the manufacturing sector or the service sector or whatever. But basically Wall Street has become an island unto itself where its main function is to make money for itself within its own world. And the result of that is that all over this country we have businesses who desperately need affordable loans so they can expand and create jobs. They can't get it, which leads me back to a position I have long advocated and introduced legislation to deal with, and that is the need to break up these huge financial institutions, six of which have assets equivalent to 2/3 of the GDP of the United States of America. Yeah, to Woody's point, I think the answer is if you're going to lend money, you got to know who your client is. Excuse me. You have to know whether that person is able to pay back that loan, especially if that loan is guaranteed. I don't think that's very complicated.
Okay. Marcia in Raleigh, North Carolina, listening on the TuneIn app. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Good afternoon. You have a lot of people calling you saying, Mr. Sanders, what can we do to solve the voter suppression? What can we do to get people to stop voting against their own best interests? And I want them to know that the Democrats also are not supporting their best interests. They didn't know that they wanted to support gay rights till a week ago. They don't know where the God is supposed to be in a platform or in church. They don't support single payer, and there's a lot of other things. So my question, you suggested the day after the election, we join a progressive party. I'm inviting you to join the Green Party, you, Thom Hartmann, Elizabeth Warren, and all the other progressives, and bring your celebrity friends with you. What say you?
Well, Marsha, I didn't say that. What I said is that the day after the election, we have got to organize a strong grassroots movement all over this country to make sure that the president stands up for working families and remembers why he was elected in the first place. That is what I said. As the longest-serving independent in the history of the U.S. Congress, somebody who's not a Democrat, excuse me, and not a Republican, I am not unsympathetic, to the efforts of third parties, including the Green Party. There are a lot of great people doing a lot of good work. But right now, my main emphasis is to make sure that we defeat a right-wing extremist party, which is the Republican Party, and to make sure that Obama stands up for working families. We just talked about trade policy. We have talked about the need for a massive jobs program to put millions of people to work. We have talked about the need for real health care reform, and I hope my state leads the nation in terms of a single-payer system. Talked about the need to finally take on Wall Street and start breaking up these banks. Now, I think third parties can play a great role where there are areas where third parties can work. And in the state of Vermont, we probably have the most successful third party. In America, we have, I think, about 6 people in our legislature out of 150 in the House who are members of the Progressive Party. It is likely that after November 6th, we'll have 3 out of 30 people in the Senate who are members of the Progressive Party. They are working closely with progressive Democrats to bring about some really good things within the state of Vermont. So what I said was we have to put as much pressure on Obama as we possibly can through a strong grassroots movement. If there are areas of the state where people want to go third party, that is absolutely their right.
Jason in Hollywood, Florida, listening on Sirius XM. You're on the air with Senator Sanders. Jason? No Jason. Okay. Stu in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You're on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Tom. Hi, Senator Bernie. Thanks both for all that you do and seeing this thing through over the next 4 weeks. Hey, how can we change the president's mindset in terms of a balance, a truly balanced approach towards deficit, cutting the deficit? The other day during the debate, one of the things I wasn't too happy with the president, he says, well, we are following a balanced approach of $2.50 in cuts to every dollar in revenue enhancement. That's not balanced. Balanced is $1 to $1, and we need to make everybody, President on down, understand that entitlements are there because people are entitled to them. Social Security, Medicare, things that people pay taxes for. There's a social contract in this country, and I'm 49 years old. I want to make sure it's going to be there whenever I get there. So how can we change the president?
Okay, I'll tell you how. All right, Stu, you've asked a great question, and I want to tell you this is an issue that I've been working on really hard. What I was upset about is not only the ratio of cuts to revenue that the president is talking about. That's only half the story, Stu. When you're talking about revenue, where is that revenue coming from? A lot of people are assuming, oh, well, that's going to be tax increases on millionaires and billionaires. Not really. Doesn't have to be. Revenue can come from the middle class as well. The other thing that was very disturbing to me, in addition to that statement on the part of the president, was his comments on Social Security. When he began the debate by, I think the first question that Jim Lehrer asked was on Social Security and Medicare, and he said, well, I think basically Governor Romney and I look at the Social Security problem similarly. We're coming from a similar place. That is not a good answer, because the fact is, and I try to make this point as often as I can, Social Security has nothing to do with deficit reduction because Social Security hasn't contributed a nickel to the deficit. In fact, it has a $2.7 trillion surplus and can pay out all benefits for the next 21 years. The only reason Social Security is being brought into this discussion is that Republicans forever, from the day after Social Security was passed, wanted to kill it, and they're still at it. And it disturbs me very much that Democrats are falling into that trap. I authored a letter along with Harry Reid, the majority leader, which now has 29 signatures on it, all of Democrats, saying, hey, Social Security should not be part of deficit reduction. Social Security is independently funded by the payroll tax. Now, to go a step further, Stu, the issue here is how, after the election, assuming Obama wins, and assuming the Democrats control the Senate and hopefully gain some seats in the House, maybe take over the House, how do we go forward with deficit reduction? What I fear very much is that Democrats, and there are meetings taking place right now, Gang of 8, meeting with CEOs, meeting with Simpson and Bowles, and what I fear, and will do my best to defeat, is some kind of $4 trillion grand deal, which would in fact cut Social Security, which would cut Medicare, not the way the Republicans want, but make cuts nonetheless, which could cut Medicaid and other programs. And the deficit contribution would be much less than it should be, given the fact that today we have the most unequal distribution of wealth and income of any major country on earth. Wealthiest people are doing phenomenally well. Top 1% owns 42% of the wealth in America. Bottom 60% owns 2.3%. When you have that dynamics of a few people with incredible wealth doing extraordinarily well, paying the lowest effective tax rate in decades, you know what? It's kind of a no-brainer. If we're going to do deficit reduction, those guys are going to have to pay more in taxes. End of discussion. And it's not just not extending Bush's tax breaks for the top 2%. You got corporations out there doing phenomenally well. Some cases, record-breaking profits. 1/4 of corporations don't pay a nickel in taxes. We're losing $100 billion a year because these corporations are wealthy individuals stashing their money in the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, Panama, other tax havens. You know what? You got to end that. Military spending, much too high. So there are things we can do to go to deficit reduction, but do it not on the backs of working families, elderly, children, and the lowest income people in this country.
It's our National Town Hall meeting. Your opportunity to talk with Senator Bernie Sanders. Our Brunch with Bernie hour here on the Thom Hartmann Program. We'll be back with more of your calls for Senator Sanders in just a moment.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And you can check out Bernie's website at sanders.senate.gov. And, of course, ThomHartmann.com. Drop into our live chat room. All kinds of cool stuff there. And welcome back, Zachary. Zachary, you are in Chicago. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I have a question. What can we do to protect voters' rights? I live in a blue state, and I was kicked off the voting rolls, so I have to re-register just because a piece of mail didn't arrive to my house. What can we do to protect people all over the country from being kicked off the voting rolls?
Well, what we can do is to make sure that the Attorney General's office and the Department of Justice is as aggressive as they can be, and they have won some suits. So we're making some progress on this issue. But bottom line is we have got to be aggressive through the Department of Justice. We have got to be aggressive at the grassroots level, at every level we can, to undo and repeal these provisions in dozens, well, not dozens, 21 states, I think, that are very clearly attempting to discriminate against lower-income people and make it harder for people to engage in the political process.
Tom, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, watching on Free Speech TV on DirecTV. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you very much, Senator. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I have probably a number of questions to ask.
Pick one,
I'd like to focus maybe on one. One really deals with the leveraging of our representatives, both in the Senate and the House, by very moneyed special interest. We have to decouple that relationship. That's one position. The next one is...
Well, hang on just a second. Is that your question, Tom?
Yeah, that's basically the question.
Okay, Bernie?
Okay. Tom has asked a very, very important question, because at the end of the day, a lot of people are saying, what's wrong with Washington? Can't these people get along? Do they all have personality deficiencies, et cetera, et cetera? And that ain't the answer. The answer has everything to do with the question that Tom has asked, and that is money in politics. Do people who get elected represent ordinary people, working people, middle-class people, low-income people, or do they spend an inordinate amount of time raising money from big money interest and end up representing those very interests? And the answer is that is exactly what goes on. One of the interesting things to do if you're watching the House or the Senate is to just trace where the idea for legislation comes from. And very often you can trace it back to moneyed interest. And this has been the case for a number of years. It has been made much worse by Citizens United. And what I would say to Tom, what I want you to do to Tom and to other listeners, to understand how bad the situation is. If you are a senator, if you are a member of the House, and a bill comes up which in your heart of hearts you think is a good bill, but it is going to take on Wall Street or the oil companies, you're going to think twice about voting for it because you don't want to be deluged with 30-second ads coming from these big money special interests. Very, very serious issue.
We'll be right back with more of Senator Sanders' answers to your questions in our National Town Hall meeting, Brunch with Bernie, here on the Thom Hartmann Program. Stick around.
It's finally Friday, I'm free again. I got my motor running for a wild weekend. It's finally Friday.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. It's Friday. It's our time for our Brunch with Bernie hour. Just a quick heads up, a little later on in the program, Eric Schneiderman, the Attorney General for the state of New York, is going to be with us. We're going to have one of our Taking Our Country Back candidates, a Democrat running for the U.S. Congress in Virginia's 9th District, will be with us, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is going to drop by. Back with our questions for Senator Sanders. Tom in Tallahassee, Florida, you're on the air with Bernie.
Senator, I think I was just listening a little bit there, and I think we're missing the boat a little bit. We've always had lobbyists. We've always had interest groups trying to influence, the Congress and the agenda. I think the problem is right now, honestly, because leadership. One thing I heard at the debates the other night that I liked is governor of Massachusetts, every Monday morning, he had a meeting with the leaders of both sides. They discussed issues. They tried to find common ground, and President Obama has made absolutely zero attempt to do that in the last 3.5 years. And I think what we have now is a Congress with the lowest approval ratings we've ever had in the history of the Congress, and that's why we've had no leadership and meeting, talking, and trying to find common ground, and not trying to place blame on lobbyists and interest groups.
Tom, you're breaking up really badly, but and speaking of blame, Tom seems to be blaming the president for all this.
Yeah, I think we got the thrust of Tom's remark. And Tom, what I want to just tell you, because I'm kind of down there, it just ain't true. If there's a criticism to be made of the president, is that time and time and time again, and you saw it in the debate, he has reached out and tried to get some agreement. I think the more honest analysis and conclusion is to hear what Mitch McConnell said several years ago when he made it very clear. He was asked, as I recall, Senator McConnell, and McConnell is the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, what is your major goal?
Here is in his own words, Bernie, if you'd like. Okay. Here it is.
Sure, please.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
There you go.
All right. And what I got to tell you, Tom, that's just not rhetoric. Again, I know, everybody has their political beliefs. Some will believe me, some will not. But you have to be down there on the floor to see how much obstruction takes place, how many filibusters are taking place, how hard it is to get the simplest thing done. Do you think these guys want to create jobs in America if that makes Obama look good? They don't. They don't. So what you're dealing with, Tom, I have, believe me, been very critical of the president in a number of ways. Nobody in the Democratic caucus more critical of him than I. But on the other hand, on this one, you have to appreciate that he is now dealing with a right-wing extremist party that has a view way out of step with the vast majority of the American people, which is why Mitt Romney is in the process of doing his Etch-a-Sketch and changing his views a month before the election. And these guys have tried to do everything they can to make Obama an unsuccessful president. So I don't think it is fair to place that onus on the president.
Mike in Grand Rapids, Michigan. You are on the air with Senator Sanders.
Hi. Great show. Glad you're doing this. My question is there something Obama could do, like an executive order, for our crumbling bridges, the roads, put a bunch of people to work doing stuff like that, paying taxes? There's so much whining back and forth about
funny,
the deficit,
Mike,
budget. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you asked me that question, because early this morning I drove down to Brattleboro, Vermont, in the southern part of the state, and we had a ceremony with Ray LaHood, who's the Secretary of Transportation, to announce the completion, a wonderful completion of a great project in Vermont. It was improving our rail bed so that trains are now going to go 20 miles an hour faster. We're cutting a half hour off of the time that it took to get from one end of our state to the other. It was a $52 million stimulus package bill. And that is exactly what we have to do all over this country, not just in rail, but in roads, but in bridges, but in wastewater plants, and in schools, and in airports. We do have a crumbling infrastructure. The American Society of Civil Engineers said we need to spend $2.2 trillion over a 5-year period just to get a passing grade. And that is the fastest way. Tom is exactly right. You want to put, Mike is exactly right. If you want to put people to work, invest in infrastructure, that is something that we're trying to do. The president is supportive of that effort. We're running into strong opposition from our Republican colleagues.
Bernie, we have about a minute and a half left. I'm just curious if you could comment on the difference between investing and spending. Republicans seem to have totally blurred the line between the two.
Absolutely. When you are investing, as any corporation will tell you, corporations, for example, invest huge amounts of money in advertising. Well, why do they do that? Because they end up getting more people to purchase their products. That's called an investment for them to make money. Within the government sector, within the civil society, it makes sense, for example, to invest in our schools so that we well educate our kids well. They are able to go out and get good jobs and be productive tax-paying members of society. That is called an investment. Mike just talked about infrastructure. You don't have to be a genius to figure out it does not make sense and it is not good for the country if your bridges are falling down, if your roads are undrivable, if your rail is slower than the rest of the world, and if your wastewater plants and water systems aren't working. When you invest in those areas, A, you create jobs, B, you make the future of our country more productive, and C, we become more competitive as a nation. That's what an investment is about. Now, if you want to go out and buy some fancy gift tomorrow, you know, that's fine that you don't need. I guess you're spending money. But investing is improving the future of our nation. If you're a private sector guy, it's improving your profit margin, I guess, for your company. But it has a goal in mind.
Thank you so much. And Bernie, thanks so much for being with us today and all these weeks, all these years. And we look forward to seeing you actually the week after next. I'll be off next Friday.
Okay, great to be with you, Tom.
Thank you so much, Bernie.